So what are your name and pronouns?
My name is Ducky. My pronouns are they, he, and I identify as non-binary.
Wonderful. Can you tell me a bit about your VTuber model or persona?
My VTuber model and persona is actually very, very closely aligned to my IRL persona. It was something that I actually very much set out to do when I started in VTubing, was to align it as closely to my IRL persona as possible, like how I look IRL. So the clothes that I wear on my model from head to toe are all clothes I have in my wardrobe. The only difference is I have white hair in my model and I do not have white hair IRL. And I don't have a duck patch on my coat, but I own this exact coat. Everything else except the duck patch is real. And that was by design. I really just wanted VTubing to be a character that was me, but I could finally live out my white hair anime boy dreams that I've been crushing on ever since I was much younger. And so that was the main design choice, because VTubing for me is very, very closely tied into what I do. I write about VTubers for some major online publications, and so the persona had to be a little bit, I guess, more professional, quote unquote. Not that, you know, anyone's design is unprofessional, because there's many, many great VTuber designs, but, you know, I'm thinking like corporate office job environment, what could I wear? That's where the model comes in.
Hey, I mean, that's reasonable, right?
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't say my model in particular, I'd bring this to a business meeting, but...
Yeah. Whereas I've definitely brought this, like, I've worn this coat, and I've worn this, like, scarf and sweater into many a meeting before.
You know, that means cosplays of your character must be pretty simple.
I have cosplayed.
You have the outfits.
Yep. I cosplay at conventions because it is dead simple. I still need to get a wig, but like, yeah, it makes cosplaying very easy. I'm actually going to be doing it next week.
Seems like it.
So yeah.
Oh my god, fellow cosplayer, let's go.
Yeah. Next week at the time of recording, which I'm not sure will be at time of publish, but it will be at the end of April. There you go.
Publishing will be June 2nd, so day of the panel, in fact.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, it'll be exactly whenever the panel starts.
Yep.
Yeah. Good stuff. So what drew you to VTubing, and do you find it rewarding?
So I was originally drawn to VTubers. Okay, hold on, let me just rephrase this. So I was initially made aware of VTubers back in 2019. They started popping up on my art feed, and I was just like, oh, cute art, and I didn't really think much beyond that. Then after that, it kind of started cropping up more and more, and I saw VTubers starting to pop up on Twitch a lot more during my day job, because, you know, we were covering streamer stuff and like VTuber clips were cropping up. I didn't like VTubers at first. I actually really didn't like the concept of VTubing, but I slowly grew to like it over time. And I think that's partially because I found VTubers that were more aligned with my interests. And so when I started diving into the niches of the community that more aligned with what I liked, or, you know, identities that I could identify with, it became a lot easier to kind of fall in love with the medium. So yeah, from 2019 to 2021, I was kind of just a passive observer. And then at the end of 2021, I started making VTuber content by myself, which for me means writing articles. So I started out just writing a few explainers, and then eventually in 2022 I started interviewing VTubers, and I still do to this day. I guess then what prompted me to make a VTuber model was because, like I said earlier, I've always been fascinated with white hair anime dudes, and I know that is a stereotype, but I just wanted that for myself, really. You know, I was kind of moving into a new part of my life. I was starting a new job. I was going to be, you know, changing quite a few things. And so moving into VTubing was part of that. And it allowed me to keep my online identity while having a little bit more control and privacy over my IRL one.
Okay, so then, in that case, has VTubing helped you discover more about yourself, would you say?
Yes. I think VTubing for me has been a very good outlet for different parts of myself that I would never really show publicly. It was always known, I guess, in private circles, and I would never shy away from discussions about my sexuality or identity. But I think VTubing specifically allowed me to open up on those two things more broadly. Part of that, I would say the majority of that is from the community itself, where I found a lot of like-minded people. I made some really, really good friends who kind of encouraged me to be more open and expressive about my interests and my likes, who showed me new media that I enjoyed. And so it was less the aspect of VTubing that, you know, made me feel more expressive or more comfortable or all those kinds of things, but the community around it that kind of enabled that.
Huh, okay, that's an interesting take. So, okay, so rather than, putting together your own model and being like, yes, this suits me perfectly to exactly what I need, what really drove you forward and made you want to keep VTubing wasn't the model itself giving you that sense of identity, but rather the community itself bringing you that kind of identity.
Yeah, like I've always been what I do in VTubing is very relationship focused. I speak to VTubers. I'm typically on the other side of the microphone when I do these things. And I've spoken to, across the last 2 years now, more than 150 VTubers, and done interviews with like 150 odd VTubers. Published a variety of articles, spoken to a variety of different people. And so a lot of that for me comes from the people that I speak to and the people who have stuck around, and less, I guess, the medium as a whole. Not to say that, VTubing didn't give me the opportunity. Being a VTuber kind of pushed me forward into that. But what's made me stay around and what kind of solidified all of those things was the community in VTubing.
That's really awesome. Oh man. Okay, so I think I am looking at your article here.
Which one? The trans one?
Yes. Tessa actually sent this to me originally. I think very back when I first was discussing it. It's been open on a tab on my PC for a while. How VTubing helps trans creators explore gender identity safely.
Yes.
That is yours, correct? Yes. Okay. I was like, I'm pretty sure this is the article. Yes.
Yes. It is.
So that was part of the reason why I was like, Tessa, if you can get Ducky to come, let me interview him. I'd love to interview them. And so Tessa is pretty great for that. But I managed to look through your article and actually saw a few other people in here that Nether, for example,
yep.
Who did also come to speak with me as well. Lovely person, by the way.
Yep.
So I can see that you've put a lot of love into, especially the trans side of the VTubing space, and I can respect that a lot. I'm definitely nothing, I'm not very familiar with doing interviews like this, but I feel very, very grateful to be able to meet with so many amazing trans creators in the VTubing space and get to hear their stories. So I really appreciate that you've taken the time to come talk with me.
Oh, thank you.
So
you're doing well.
Thank you. I'm a very awkward person. I hide it with putting on an act of sorts. So can you share some of the highs and lows of your journey being transgender or gender non-conforming in the VTubing space so far?
Oh boy. Okay. I think, again, everything ties back to the community of people, because VTubing is just a creative medium. It is just a way of expression, and it's not necessarily like a game or anything like that. It is just the way that you express yourself, and that is so intrinsically tied with the community. And so the highs that I've experienced with the community have been really, really good. I have made some amazing friends. I would say the majority of my friends in VTubing fall somewhere along LGBT, whether that be for the identity side or the sexuality side. They are all some flavor of LGBT. And I think that has been really nice camaraderie and community to have in the last kind of 18 months or so. The community that I have managed to build for myself and the friendships and the relationships have gotten me through some pretty perilous IRL times, whether that be like a new job or moving cities, living by myself, and it's just nice to have that kind of connection. And I think as well, the reason why I really fell in love with VTubing, I went from not liking VTubing to loving it, was the creative expression side of things. And I think the community that benefits the most from creative expression in VTubing is the trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming community. It is such a powerful medium for that, and I get a lot of joy seeing creators find that out about themselves, being able to explore that in a safe environment. And I guess as I wrote in 2022, and I've continued to write about trans issues in VTubing ever since, VTubing really is the ultimate tool for that in the online world, especially when you compare it to what we had previously, whether it be like Second Life or Gaia Online or other role-playing, I guess, forums or games. Like, VTubing is the ultimate form of that. As it comes for cons, I think while the bubble of trans, LGBT, gender non-conforming, non-binary VTubers is very strong, and it does have a long way to go in terms of widespread acceptance in the community. I have been personally targeted because of my identity, and harassed as a result of my identity. I have seen many trans creators be misgendered, and harassed to the point of having to, delete their profiles entirely, and go dark on the internet again. And I think VTubing, while it spooks itself as being a very inclusive environment, and I think in many sections of the community it is, at large there are still some very major issues that are preventing, I guess, gender non-conforming VTubers from being truly, properly accepted.
Yeah, I would say I've definitely seen some of those issues, and it's become, when I first started out, it wasn't as much of an issue. But then as time went on, I started to realize that perhaps there were people in the community who weren't accepting in the way that I expected them to be. And I kind of went in with a feeling of, like, when you think everything's sunshine and rainbows, and the reality is maybe a little less than that.
Yeah.
It's kind of the mindset I went into it with. And unfortunately, that has come to disappoint me a few more times than I would like to admit. So I truly do understand what you mean by that. And even though I haven't been in the space nearly as long, I've definitely seen what that's like. And sometimes it makes me, a little bit nervous to push forward as a trans creator myself. And, of course, it's always going to be at the back of my head, making this video is going to be like, is this going to cause hate? There's a chance. But, I think the takeaway from this is going to be, helping others feel more comfortable stepping forward and being themselves. So
I think if I was to tie it off, VTubing has done more good for trans creators than bad. VTubing as a creative medium, as a way of expression, if you put it in a vacuum, is so inherently good for gender expression, being comfortable with yourself, exploring things. And the negatives are something that can be worked out over time. They are mostly community focused. But the whole idea of VTubing being inherently a trans concept, which is something that I actually truly believe, is true. It's a very trans positive space when you just strip away the elements and realize what you can do as a VTuber. It's just a matter of other people getting up to speed as well.
Yeah. Do you, and this is actually a question that's not on the list here, so I apologize, you can feel free to not to answer, but do you feel like VTubing becoming a little bit more mainstream or well-known may have contributed to the influx of trans hate in the community?
I actually think it's the opposite. I think it's the opposite because if you go into the roots of VTubing fandom, what is VTubing fandom spawned out of? It's spawned out of streamer culture, anime culture, and gaming culture. And those three things combined are not great in regards to gender expression. They are historically very mixed communities when it comes to LGBT rights. There is a high amount of transphobia, especially in the anime fandom. And I think that is actually a hindrance to VTubing, and it becoming more mainstream, it becoming more broadly accepted, actually neutralizes that. So I actually think it's the opposite. I think obviously the volume would be more because there's just going to be more people, and so you might be targeted by more in terms of volume, but as a proportion, it will reduce.
Okay, that's interesting. I had been thinking the exact opposite, so I was like, maybe I should ask, your thoughts on it because it's a curiosity.
Yeah. Other people
and
have
I hate
different
to say
opinions,
it,
but that's just what I think about that subject.
Yes. It sucks because I hate when I hate to say it. It's like, the fact it comes from gaming and anime and streamer culture, because those are all things that very much apply to me and have applied to me for many, many years. And to come to the realization that perhaps, the hate that is directed towards me and others like myself, perhaps is, comes from people who have similar interests as me, which kind of it hurts to know, but it...
Those spaces are full of some of the most accepting people, but those spaces are equally also filled with some of the most rotten people.
Feels very versatile there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, no, I appreciate you answering that. I was like, I thought about it and I was like, maybe that'd be a good question based on the conversation at hand. Okay, so, how did you, I think you kind of covered this a little bit, but in case there's anything else you want to say about it, how did you ensure that your model represented you?
I took photos of my wardrobe and I sent it to my wonderful art parent. That's basically the easiest way to describe it. I had a very wonderful art parent, Hira, who is a stunning artist. They did everything from character design to the live 2D art, and they rigged my model as well. They were awesome. And I think when it came to, I guess, the character concept stage and making sure that it was a nice representation of me that was affirming, it was literally just, I am comfortable as myself. I really like the way that I can express myself IRL anyways with my outfits and stuff. I just really wanted white hair. That's basically it. It's actually not that much deeper than that. I just wanted to be me, but with white hair. And that was the nail on the head. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Hey, that's pretty great though. There's nothing wrong with a simple explanation, right? Okay, so this is my last question for you. What would you say to someone who was looking at VTubing as an option to being their truest self in content creation?
I think VTubing is the ultimate form of expression, especially when it comes to content creation, but it is not the only form. You don't have to be wiggling around as a live 2D model. People have existed online with avatars and PNGs and other visual representations of themselves for decades now. I think if you want to get into VTubing as a way to better express yourself, the anonymity of the internet can be both your best friend and your worst enemy. I think, truthfully, it is worth getting into, especially if you're considering wanting to make content, but you're not quite sure whether you want to present yourself on camera or you want to present a particular voice or a way of expression or a particular identity. VTubing is a very flexible medium for that, but so is things just like PNG tubing and other parts of that, which is also, like, I consider PNG tubing to be part of VTubing, but it's important to make that distinction that if you're worried about the barrier of entry to VTubing because you need a live 2D model to wriggle around is that high, you can literally just start with a pit crew. And if you like the pit crew, you can adapt the pit crew into a PNG tuber. You can go and get it commissioned. And if you like that PNG tuber a lot, eventually, and if you want to start VTubing, you can go and do VTubing. But the whole point of this medium is to be able to express yourself in a way that affirms your identity. And you don't, if you want to go all out and you want to get the nicest live 2D model possible or a 3D model possible from the get-go, you can go and do that. But if you're really not sure and you want to test the waters, you want to find a name that suits you, an identity that suits you, and a look that suits you, there is so many different ways that you can enter this community, and every single one of them is valid.
That was very well put. Actually making me think a little bit deeper about VTubing itself. I started out as a 3D VTuber, so my partner had a lot of capabilities in 3D modeling, so was able to make me a model that suited my needs at the time.
I mean, I started as a pick crew. I literally started as a pick crew. I had...
Speaking from personal experience then.
Yeah. Like, the Ducky 1.0 design was just a pick crew, and it was a bunch of different pick crews, each with different clothing. Those became my references for my PNG tuber, which then became my reference for my actual live 2D model.
Literally the process of how you came from the start to now your live 2D model.
Yep.
That's amazing. That's an inspiration right there. So is there anything else you'd like to add on before I end the recording?
Trans rights are human rights. There we go. I think I can say that. And I think I was gonna say that's probably it. I think what I've said enough. And you'll have many an interview to edit, so I will save your time.
No, I mean, I won't be saving my time. I'll be saving my VOD scraper's time.